in order at 5:01. We have nobody zooming in, yes, so not really hybrid.
David is not on the ground, so he will not be able to make it.
Fair enough. Oh, right.
Open a crack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. So, thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.
First thing on the agenda is to approve minutes. We have two different meeting minutes to approve.
Is it January 23rd and March 6th?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Talk about March 6th. Or was that covering
I'll
both?
cover both. Yeah.
Awesome. Done. Yes. I actually want to skip over to new business election of clerk because I am trying to write this down and run the show. So we had discussed this and talked about maybe rotating it. Does that still sound good to people?
Unless somebody had a change of heart and they really wanted to be the clerk.
John, would you like to be clerk?
Oh, please no.
That we talked about, just taking turns at each meeting. One person will take the minutes.
Oh, what one? Each meeting.
Yeah,
So-
we'll
rotate. Yeah.
rotate.
I'll do it for tonight.
You do,
Sure.
okay, thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
Okay, do we have to vote on having a revolving clerk?
I'll make a motion in the absence of a clerk that will, request that, we have a rotation of who takes the minutes. And then in Mary's absence, somebody should, run the meeting. And we can do that on an ad hoc basis.
Sounds good.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, so we're gonna go back to old business. So I actually wanted to just sort of I had a call with Pat and Mel from Collins Center, and they have concerns, which I have pretty much the same concern too, that we are not getting as far along as they think we should be at this time. I was looking at their draft work plan, and it looks like we've done meetings 1 through 5 and 8 and 9 maybe, or something like that. We skipped. I don't know that we've done the legislative, but I've also missed a meeting or two. So I don't know if someone would like to kind of summarize where we've been so far and if we've made any, I don't think we've made any decisions about what type of document we hope to produce at the end of this, but does anyone feel like they have a good grasp of where we are in the process? Just as a summary.
I can start and
Okay.
so, I think that, initially one of the things we were looking at is, and being educated on was the concept of charter. Right,
Mhm.
versus what we have. We were presented with several options, to review. And we did have a meeting where we discussed what we liked about some and not others. I think one of the again, we say decision, but
Right.
a recommendation point, because this committee would be going back to the select board, was there was conversation around the clarity and detailed nature in particular of I think it was South Hadley,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And did we feel that it was necessary or useful for us to really spell everything out to the extent that they did? My sense coming away from that was that the majority of our group thought that it would be prudent to do that.
Okay.
Should not to replicate the South Hadley charter to make it more concise or
Well, that it actually would be helpful to the town of Hadley to have an overarching charter document that really spelled out the duties and responsibilities of the respective boards.
Sounds.
but maybe not.
We didn't actually vote on it, to my
Right.
recollection,
No.
but I think it was more of, so I think that's one thing that we should. Yeah, how do we come to a decision point on that?
Yeah.
Then we moved on to garnering feedback from people who are currently engaged in town matters. And we had Mike Mason come in as the acting town administrator. He highlighted for our group what he thought worked reasonably well. You know, I think he highlighted the fact that, you know, we're blessed with department heads that do work really well together. But that moving from the police chief's perspective to the town administrator's perspective, he said it didn't take him very long to realize that there were a lot of people that he, as the kind of lead administrator in the town, had no authority over. So he pointed out, you know, the fact that the assessor reports to, the assistant assessor reports to the board of assessors, park and rec director has kind of a dotted line, technically reports to the park and rec commission, but day to day more to the town administrator, you know, and whether or not it made sense to consider clarifying that in some way. Should we be looking at that? And, you know, the logical step in that direction would be to move towards what's referred to as a strong town administrator, you know, where they would have the hiring and firing authority with great clarity, right? Which currently really resides with the select board. And in thinking about that, should we also be thinking about those other boards and the oversight and who's reporting to? Yeah. So I don't think that we have gotten to that point yet. That hasn't been part of the scope of our discussion up until now. It was just thrown out there. And then most recently, we requested a survey go out. And there's been some response, but it appears to me that it's fairly limited. And we haven't yet talked to specific boards such as, you know, planning board.
After the last meeting that I attended, I took the opportunity to talk to each of the selectmen, to ask them how they felt about various things, because I could see that where the input to this board was tending toward a strong administrator. But I realized that nothing was going to happen in that regard unless the board of selectmen was in favor of it. And interestingly enough, I pulled all five, and all five are basically in favor of a strong administrator. I also took the opportunity to call South Hadley and query them a little bit about the document that we received from them. And what I'd like to bring back to the board about that conversation is that everything's going well in South Hadley, and that they would be willing to help us by maybe even coming to a meeting if the board felt that was appropriate, to explain any questions that we have about how the way they articulate it is actually working. Also, I'll pass that on. They said they're happy to help other towns. So
Were these members of the select board?
did I talk to?
Yeah.
No, this was the administration.
Do you remember how long ago South Hadley made the change?
It's on their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did up to.
2019, I feel like.
That's what I'm feeling.
It's been a while and it seems to have stuck.
Yeah, right. Because what would be curious to me, I mean, I'd be very interested in hearing, you know, what worked, what didn't work, you know, kind of the classic where, you know, wherever the body's buried,
Well,
you know, in the transition process.
I think that's the important thing. One of the things I learned way back when I was a selectman is that, in Hadley, we tend to, we take the farmer's attitude toward things, and that is that you can't tell a farmer how to farm.
Yeah.
But they're always interested in how other farmers farm. And there are 356 cities and towns, and someone has been this route before and can help us.
Yeah.
We just need to talk to that person. The other thing I noticed in the survey that we sent out, compared to South Hadley, where everything is laid out, and the selectmen are basically policy-making people, and the administrator takes care of the day-to-day running of the town, including overseeing department heads. That when you look at the survey here, it's all over the board.
Yeah.
And there are various people report to various other people, some of whom don't really have anything to do with what's going on. And I have a great little story back when I was a selectman. We hired a guy by the name of Tom Bircher, who had years of experience working around the country as a town manager. And he came here to fill in for the town administrator who we lost. But he brought with him the town manager frame of mind. And one day, you know that sign that's outside the town hall that's blue with a gold leaf in the Hadley? Well, it was looking pretty bright. And he came to me, and I think it was probably a selectman chairman at the time, and said, look, I'm gonna fix that sign. 40,000 people a day go by that sign, and that's the impression you're leaving to those people by just not taking care of your sign. If you think about it, I just nodded, because he was a take charge guy. He wasn't bringing it to a selectman for permission. It was just sort of letting me know what he was going to do. And if you think about it, he took care of it in about 2 days. It was done. And that involved the fire department, bringing the ladder truck out so we could get it down, and involved the highway department, take it down and find some place where it could be, the gold leaf could be. And then they had to put it all back. Well, the whole thing took about 2 days. It and today's way of doing things might have involved the historical commission for crying out loud. And it would have taken.
Member of the historical commission.
Well, I don't mean that, I didn't
No.
mean it as a disparaging thing.
No, it's
But trying to illustrate that it would have taken, what, 4 weeks for your next meeting, and
oh, yeah.
people who didn't know anything about it would pontificate, and they would go back, and then the minutes, and Tom just,
They had us weighing in on what materials to use when they renovate the town hall.
Okay.
Well, historically wood, but the one that's cheapest and best to maintain. Like, you obviously can't keep up wood. We've tried and failed.
and I take it from the survey done and the information that I got from talking to everybody, was a strong town administrator is probably what we do need at this point.
Yeah.
Did you get a sense from the person you spoke with that the current board of select, or the current select board in South Hadley is happy that the change was made?
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
Probably one of fewer meetings.
For sure, because it clarifies who's supposed to do what.
Yeah.
And one of the great lines that I uncovered here is the one that says that the selectmen shall be in charge of policy. Full stop as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And when I talked to the selectmen here, one of them said, that's the reason I actually took out papers to be a selectman. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, to try to push the selectmen into dealing with just policy and the future.
Mhm.
And remember, this followed the, meeting where the highway superintendent brought before the Board of Selectmen the current, or recent employment of an hourly worker.
Mhm.
And it went up to the Board of Selectmen, none of whom knew the person we were talking about, none of whom knew what the job actually was, or whether the person would fit in with the crew. And they pontificated about it. The whole thing took about a half an hour of valuable meeting time of the selectmen. And so that people who were responding to me may have been reacting a little bit to that. So now I'll shut up.
So that sort of confirms where I thought we were, but I just want to make sure I wasn't missing anything. And so my sense is that we kind of all want to create a document that at least clarifies lines of reporting and make them all go to the town administrator, create that strong town administrator. What I think we need to decide maybe today is, should we just focus on that? And, you know, if we want, the rest of the charter can just codify what's actually happening, so it's all in one place, we have that nice one document. Or do we want to continue going through and come up with our own language for, you know, if we change from elected boards to appointed boards and look into, you know, all different sort of aspects that we could add to the charter, making more changes to the governance? Or do we want to just focus on this, getting this HR authority thing in line? And then we could also write a report that says, you know, we think in the future, select board should also consider, you know, converting some of the elected. And I just read the article about the upcoming election. There's, you know, just yours seat is disputed.
Yeah.
And there's one office that has no one
Not
running
to
for it.
dispute.
Right, right. But yeah, it's all, it's just, you know, we're all gonna go in and,
Contested races.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a few contested races.
Yeah. yeah,
Can I make a suggestion for discussion?
of course.
I'm thinking, again, we're, like many of these working groups or subcommittees, you know, we're here at the pleasure of the select board. And I'm wondering if maybe it would be a good time to check back in, like get on the agenda.
Yeah.
I think I could probably make that happen, at least in the next few weeks. But get on the agenda, apprise the full board of where we think we are. And then, you know, get some counsel from them, because it may be, I don't know what my fellow board members are thinking in terms of the
Right.
scope. They may very well say what you did, like, yeah, that's enough, let's just get that one
Let's
thing
get that in
done.
order and worry about.
There,
anything else
there may be
later.
other things that are on people's minds that they would like more effort put into. I don't know.
And to, you know, we kick the can on that sort of thing. If we succeed in drafting a charter that codifies the current operations and policy, then it'll be easier to change things when, you know, this is how it is, instead of being like, but I don't know, we don't even actually do that, you know. It'll be clear how things really are.
You know, if we hired if our recommendation were to hire an experienced town administrator, experienced in municipal government, then
That's trying to.
patching up the bylaws could be somewhat delegated to that person. And we get a much better job than if we sort of ad hoc the
That's
thing.
true.
So just from experience, you know, the bigger the project you take on, the longer it's going to take.
Yeah, of course.
And I think getting something accomplished in a timely manner is preferable to maybe getting something better done someday. I'm sure we've been working on a major rewrite of a bylaw that's coming to town meeting. And we've been working on it. It was probably first mentioned 6 months ago. And the attorney for the developer who is most interested in seeing it happen has done most of the work.
Funny how that works.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we would we wouldn't
Here's the
be,
bill.
we wouldn't be ready to go to town meeting in a month.
Right.
If
Yeah.
we were,
It wasn't
we would still be
done.
working on it.
It sounds like we're all pretty much on the same page. And Collins Center was, they want to tell us what to do, but they are also thinking that, you know, our main concern, which is why I sort of feel like we've been spinning our wheels and we just keep getting hung up on this, like, but what if, you know, the assessors hire some lunatic and there's nothing we can do about it, you know?
Right, right.
And because that is the thing that's really bothering people in town governance. So
Say it again, what's bothering me?
the reporting structure and the authority and it being all muddled and everything going to the select
I
board.
think you're overvaluing that. Now, Kayla did say that the reporting structure was confusing,
And so
Right.
did,
But-
so did the Board of Health.
but Kayla is in her first year of the land use manager.
Mhm.
She went from being the assistant to the Conservation Commission to being the assistant to Conservation Planning, ZBA and CPA. So
Yeah.
technically, I know she doesn't work for any of us. She was hired by the select board.
Yeah,
She's maybe getting her feet under her to figure out who she reports to.
yeah,
Board of Health, I think it's a slightly different situation because, you know, again, it's an elected board.
But he was appointed, so he was appointed by the elected board.
Yeah.
But day to day,
I was also mostly thinking about Mike Mason, you know, from his perspective now, sitting in the acting town administrator and feeling like he doesn't have authority over some people that he may need to someday, like it's working, but, and that seemed to be the impetus for this committee. So I think it makes sense that we do want to clean that up. And it does sound like everyone's sort of on board with not proposing lots of other changes, just we maybe, I was thinking actually, I know we've gone through generally in large scope, but we could really just go through South Hadley's and see like, do we need this?
Mhm.
Would we tweak it?
right,
Is there anything missing? And then we have one, like,
and
pretty
then,
much.
like, to Bill's point, I mean. You know, if they have a different structure than we do, you know, we might. You know, quickly hit on the perceived pros and cons,
Right.
but leave that for, like, highlight it and say,
Mhm.
well, this is interesting. You know, maybe that's worthy of
Right.
further consideration when the new town administrator is in place, and like you're saying.
Yeah,
It's sort of by the inch to cinch and by the art is hard. So if we take on too much,
Yeah.
it'll either blow a fuse at the selectman level or at the town meeting level. Either way,
Yeah.
you lose.
So I'm not remembering, is the jump from weak to strong town administrator a statutory choice like it is
No.
with strong police and strong fire?
No, it's a description of their
Yeah.
duties.
yeah,
Okay,
Well, but if it's an actual charter,
that has to go to
that
state.
goes to.
that would be
Yeah.
That's
effectively
statute.
statutory.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, but if we're hiring somebody to do what we envision here, stating that in the job description and looking for a person to fill that role would solve the problem. And if it then has to be modified into the charter, that's fine.
Yeah,
So we'd be looking at a special act just addressing the duties of the town administrator.
I don't think you need a special act for that, do you?
So,
You do?
if you're doing a charter,
No.
but
Just,
I'm saying, if you're
just
doing a
to
charter,
get it going.
you need a special act. If you're changing the job description, it still has to go to town meeting because our bylaws describe the duties which are weak. So it's not as easy as just changing the job description and hiring that person and they automatically have that delegation of authority.
But going forward,
Mhm.
since you'll be in the group that will be charged with picking the town administrator, the next town administrator,
Mhm.
that gives you some information on what to look for.
And just so everybody is aware, the search committee
Mhm.
knows that this is a possible outcome. So they have this lens in mind as they're interviewing. So that's why I'm thinking, you know, checking back in with the select
Yeah,
board
that-
sooner.
and the draft work plan has, like, we'd be coming up right about now on a public forum, which I don't think, I think that would be our public forum, like nobody's gonna come. Us, maybe I'm a cynic, but I don't see us filling a cafeteria of people interested in the form of governance. So I think that would check off the public engagement box.
Yeah, and that'd be on
Done some,
YouTube, on
Yeah.
Hadley Media.
If we did meet with the select board, would we present them one possible option is an adaptation of the South Hadley Charter?
I think so, yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of just recap like we just did tonight, like, this is what we've done, so that they know the legwork that's been done. Here's where we're at, and we're looking for guidance from you, because if one, two, or three people on the select board say, whoa, like, no.
We
we
want
don't
more
wanna go down
diffusion
that.
of responsibility, like
Yeah.
every board should have its own staff.
So-
And it should be
Someone
good
could
to know
say
that, yeah.
So the simple approach would be to amend the town bylaws, which only requires a
Town meeting.
majority vote
Yep.
at town meeting,
Mhm.
to modify the job description for the article, modify the article on
Mhm.
town administrator.
Duties, yeah.
Update it or whatever. I think also to help us sell an idea, it would be to point out repeatedly that the investigation we've done points to the fact that this is the trend across the state, so that they don't think we're asking them for something that's different.
Right.
And that's for the Collins Center. It's always good to have that
Exactly.
third party
Yeah.
voice.
Exactly, and that also might militate toward getting somebody from South Hadley in to talk about it.
Mhm.
How did they get there?
Yep.
So do we ask the Collins Center to propose some language to modify the job description to strong town administrator?
Okay. Or does
We
the
can
South
take
Hadley
100%
language
back.
have what we want?
Yeah.
Or, we could tweak it.
Florida does.
That's I don't have it on me, but that's my recollections. That was pretty
I mean,
detailed.
this might,
It is pretty
Yeah,
detailed.
it is,
And
yeah.
what it does, as I read through it, compared with the comments that we got on the survey and had, and is, I served on a ship in the Navy, and there's a captain and there's an executive officer. The captain doesn't talk to the department heads. The executive officer does. And what we need in a town, because the town operates in a very similar way.
Mhm.
It's all complicated and it's different and it's diverse. Is somebody who, like Tom Bircher, can get the people who work for the town to do what needs to be done. Period. And have that ability delegated to them by the board of selectmen.
yeah, well, I
So
think
that they
that
have the
makes the
authority.
select board's life better. I mean, you're all spending an awful lot of time running the town on a volunteer basis and, the person we were paying was doing some of that.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, just to underscore that again, we're always one election cycle away from change. And those election results provide, 5 people with may or may not have day jobs, may or may not have the ability to even participate in meetings that occur during the day, right? So that all matters when the select board has a role to play in the day-to-day operations. So, if you had a board where everybody worked full-time, nobody was self-employed, and they had jobs that
Impossible.
it would be kind of impossible.
Well,
and
those
just-
people won't, I mean, they don't wanna run.
Yeah.
Right.
Right,
Nobody's
Well,
gonna run
think-
for something they have to spend
If they
all
can't,
their
they
spare
can't.
time
Think of it
doing,
this
right?
way, if you delegate too much of the day-to-day running to the selectmen, you're delegating it to people who wouldn't even qualify under the job description for the town administrator.
Mhm.
Seriously. I mean, it took me a long time to learn about the finance of a town. And it involved talking to people in other towns and going to statewide meetings. I was self-employed, so I could do it, but most people can't.
And then what winds up happening too, it's not a complaint, but for people who have the flexibility, then the burden of time is on those individuals, right? Because, yeah, I mean, I will happily do the proclamation tomorrow at 10 o'clock on the steps of town hall. You know, I mean, those things are fine, but again, you're just at the mercy of who.
What are you proclaiming?
It's a Child Abuse Awareness Month. It's every year they do that. They used to raise a flag, but now it's changed. They're doing a proclamation and they have like luminaria, I think. Yeah, so there's a ceremony at 10 o'clock in the morning. Oh, yeah.
Do you think that the town is ready for a strong town administrator? And I would read that almost as like a town manager. Is the town ready to delegate the day-to-day running of the town to an administrator? Or do they think that the part-time selectman can do it?
I'm gonna go with Mary. I don't know.
You would?
I don't know.
I don't know that people really.
I don't think people think about it too much,
No.
or as long as things are working,
Yeah, as long as
they're not
it's
gonna
working.
question.
I mean, I honestly don't. Most people that have no idea how many town employees there are and what they do.
Yeah.
As long as when I have a problem, like there's a dead animal out in front of the house in the road, somebody
Right.
comes and gets it. That's
Mhm.
fantastic. The streets are always plowed,
Mhm.
great.
Well, from Mike Mason's comments when he was here,
Mhm.
he thought there would be widespread support for clarification of the responsibilities of each department and for a strong town administrator.
I think the employees,
Mhm.
for sure.
I think the only
sure.
possible strong objection would come from someone on a board who feels like they're losing control of their employee. But I don't.
But I
we
think
don't
that's just the
we have
select
those
board. Really what we're talking about.
Well, one of the things that doesn't help, the chain of command in this town is having liaisons. Now, you tell me, when the sorry, it's subjective, when the department head has to, manage a group of people, should the department head communicate with and work with the town administrator or the liaison on the board of selectmen?
Town administrator. The liaison,
Then what do we have a liaison for?
and we recently actually put this in writing finally, right? I think we still have to vote on it though. I think we only did one reading on it, but the role of the liaison really is ideally that you have somebody on the board who is a little bit more knowledgeable about the inner workings of a particular functional area. And they may be available for, to improve communication, but not to be a decision maker. That's very clear. The liaisons have no authority to direct anybody. But if, for example, so I'm the liaison for public safety.
They can't direct an employee.
Right, so if Mike Spanknable or Mike Mason in that capacity as public safety they're thinking about something, right? So, hey, I'm thinking about changing the way that we handle, I'm making this up, overtime, right? Can I run it by you before I bring it to, right? That's an appropriate use of a liaison.
Sort of like
But-
an advisor.
Yeah, and then I've got some sense, so when it does come to the full board, I can kind of perhaps help with the communication on
Yeah.
something like that. But if the same topic comes to me, right, as the liaison and say, hey, I'm thinking about this, and I say, don't do it, well, that's not okay, right? That's a discussion for the town administrator and the full board.
Or they can just ignore you. You can say it.
They should.
Yes.
I say that, yeah.
Do not follow that order.
And I understand, John, to your point, it hasn't always worked that way with liaisons, but that's why we've tried to.
We've had selectmen who, thought they were basically in competition with the highway department, the director. And, it took disastrous results for the town. And morale of the employees.
The draft work plan. I should have brought it.
So Sally's point, I don't think there are many elected departments that have direct hires. I can only think of two,
For the hill.
Board of Health and Recreation Commission, and they each only have one direct hire. So, I don't think that's gonna be an issue if it came to moving things around.
Yeah, matter of fact, they may welcome.
Yeah.
Oh, and assessor.
And the assessor, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are three employees,
Yeah.
each of a three-member board. So that's a small universe of the employees who would be affected.
Yeah, and it's the first step that doesn't even have to be dealt with. It's
Right, no, it's moving, it's moving. I think maybe doing getting the definition of the job definition description approved by town meeting would be a more valuable first step
Which, John?
of the town administrator.
I agree.
Do you remember what month we?
That was early on.
Yeah.
And if the
Maybe
second
October,
is
November.
supportive of it, it'll probably pass.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is fighting to, of course, there is a section of the community that reads these things for the first time while they are waiting for town meeting to start.
Yes.
And I have argued to several moderators that they should not recognize people who have not read the operative document before
Like
tonight.
a quiz before they walk in.
Yeah.
How familiar are you with warrant?
You're about to make a comment.
Just in terms of, actually making a plan. But thank you for having this. So this draft work plan that they gave us, what I'm gonna be basically asking is, do you guys want to do pages 2 and 3? So we've talked about how to approach the work. We've definitely talked about the executive branch. And we've talked about elected and appointed officials, but I don't know that we're gonna weigh in. It sounds like we're probably not gonna tackle that. But if the board wants us
Yeah, if the
to,
board wants us to, then we can take it up then.
but so just to get a sense for going forward. What they have for meetings 10 and 12, which I think probably maybe passed by now, but discuss preamble, introduction, administrative organization, and prepare for public forum. I don't think we prepare public forum because we're just gonna talk to the select board. Are we envisioning a charter that has a preamble, an introduction, like all that, or are we thinking of something slimmer?
Something slim.
That's what I was
Slimmer
thinking.
is-
So
Keep it simple.
pretty much skip that meeting.
Yeah.
Financial policies and procedures, do we want to get into that? It sounds like we don't really. I mean, establishing what they are and writing them down, I guess.
I think the only thing relevant on that topic for this committee. Over the years, there's been conversation about the finance committee. So in Hadley, the town moderator appoints the finance committee.
Interesting.
Okay. And there are several small towns that do that. There are some towns where the finance committee is actually elected. I think West Hampton they actually run for it. But the vast majority, and this is something, again, I'm throwing out this language, but I believe, just from looking at a list, it appears that the vast majority are actually appointed by the select board because they're looking for people with certain particular skill sets. right? Again, just like we talked about the treasurer and collector, like, you
Yeah.
want to make sure people in those roles have some degree of financial
Right.
background. Ideally, in a town, you want your finance committee to have some, some acumen that they're bringing to the table, whether they're business owners or whatever.
Mhm.
And again, I don't know that that's something for our committee to talk about. That's something we could ask the select board. But I mean, when I think about finance, to me, from a town structure standpoint, that's the only thing that we would be talking about
Right.
in our group. Otherwise, the staffing of town hall with the, finance director, and that's already established.
Yeah,
I recall when I was here asking if moving to a South Hadley type of town charter would increase town expenditures. And he said it's a wash. But it doesn't necessarily increase or decrease town expenditures.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
that's good. So that's be an easy meeting.
Yeah.
Then there's citizen relief mechanisms. Do we have something like that, or would we be creating
We have a
Something.
recall,
just the recall?
bylaw, which has been used once.
That's amazing,
Our hope is to
actually,
keep it that way.
which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, one of
There's
the
some grumpy
reasons,
people in town.
I can tell you, one of the reasons it was only used once is it's very difficult to use, to do. You have to get the town to vote
Yeah.
the person out,
Would we?
and, it's not, you can't get people to agree to vote the person out. It's that it takes an awful long time to get the signatures.
And it's also an extreme, it's for extreme problems.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
do we want to talk about recommending or putting in the charter some lower level? I think that we'll get information from Collins Center on this stuff, but
Yeah, because I'm not really sure what,
I think they're saying, like, is there a number I can call if I've got an issue like with somebody or services? I mean, people just go to the
Well, we-
department heads and complain.
well, they
Town
come in a
administrator.
variety of ways. So
Yeah.
the select board, we get contacted.
Mhm.
There's like a form, if somebody wants to reach out, you can
Okay.
go on the
So
town
there's a form.
website.
Mhm.
I've been on the receiving end of both accolades for somebody in town and complaints in that manner. They can call the town administrator's office or select board office. Jennifer fields a lot of those phone calls. So I think we do have,
Yeah,
and we have a communication policy now that also, kind of sets some customer service standards that if somebody does reach out, somebody should get back to them. Sounds pretty basic.
Yeah.
You know,
Do any towns in the area have what's called a ombudsman?
I think so.
Hmm.
I think that's more, I think of the larger
Mhm.
municipalities that have an ombudsman.
Actually, haven't seen any around here.
I think in Boston area.
and would they be focused on town staff issues or citizens?
What kind of community outreach and then, almost like a liaison role between.
It's kind of job that it's kind of defined by the person in it
Yeah,
Yeah.
good point.
and by what comes across the desk.
But so that's pretty much all that's left. The rest is like working on the report and stuff, which. Yes, it'll work itself out, especially if we decide to. You basically use South Hadley as a template and, cut and add or whatever you want to do. That's just how I've been a lawyer for 20-something years and I'm all about. Taking something and just tweaking it instead of, starting from scratch.
I tell people, including school teachers who hate to hear it, that in the law, plagiarism is not a flaw, it's a best practice.
Absolutely. It's like, you won that motion, can I have it? I will be filing it today.
Yes, if you send me a draft deed with a notary clause in Word, it's mine.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely, I mean, I'd be happy to go like line by line through that thing and strike out what we don't like.
But I think that might be phase two. If the
Yeah.
first step is to just work, and that's something you can ask for guidance from the select board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is phase one enough for now? Or do you want to do phase one and have us continue working on phase two?
right.
So we just met. So it'll be the 16th, I think, would be our next meeting. Did people feel that
Would someone like to present our, do the presentation to the select board? Anyone? I can do it if no one wants to, but.
yeah, I mean, I think there's,
I'm there enough anyways.
Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, and, you know, I think it would be good to have as many committee members
People be
there
there,
as
but-
possible. Yeah, so that it's, you know, again, it's a working group. It's not just.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be great if you wanna.
I don't need to, but you know, if somebody needs to speak and no one else does it, then I think by default I have to. As chair.
As chair. Yeah.
Yes, that choice. If I ever
At some
see
point-
her.
At some point, would it be helpful to have an electronic version of the South Hadley Charter? So that we can work with it, cut and paste and.
It's
Yeah.
probably available.
Yeah, I have it
Under
downloaded.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah, I
through the
have it.
website.
We must
Cut
have
it and
gotten it at
paste
some
it into a
point.
Word
Yeah,
document.
Joyce, the Collins Center gave us
yeah.
multiple
Mhm.
versions, but I suspect the charter as a whole is probably on the South Hadley's
Yeah,
website.
yeah.
And we could make that part of the select board material,
Mhm.
just so that it's, you know,
Yeah.
they have it, we
Yeah.
have it. You know, so people can refer to it as well.
Mhm.
And, you know, they may or may not provide guidance. Sometimes, you know, we like to take a 1-2 step. People want to think about things.
Yeah.
But, you know, if John had those conversations and his
Mhm.
assessment is right.
He's already prepped the field.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like we do have a path forward. We don't know if it's gonna be a long path or a relatively brief path, but we will find out from the select board if they want us, you know, charging forth and determining, making recommendations about whether boards should be elected or not, then we'll be doing this for a while longer.
Mhm.
But if we focus just on the HR type
I
structure.
understand the HR type.
Mhm.
It could depend also a lot on who we get in as the full-time town administrator.
Mhm.
And I recognize that the first 6 months are going to be a blur for that person.
Yes.
And they'll not be joining this meeting every night or every session.
Mhm.
But I think it would be useful to get input from that person when they have been, assuming A, that they have prior municipal experience, and B, that they've had time to pick up a sense of how Hadley operates,
Mhm.
that person could really make a big contribution towards
Mhm.
where we should go, what the next direction should be.
Or we could even
And
go
how
on
to get there.
hiatus,
Mhm.
That's true.
right? I mean, we
Mhm.
could say, okay, if the select board agrees, okay, then we take this over the finish line.
Mhm.
And then take a hiatus
Mhm.
until, like Bill says, we've
Yeah.
got somebody else in there, and then maybe pick it back up in, you know, the fall or even
Yeah,
first
so
quarter of next year.
as a
A
functional
great
matter,
discussion with the person who was hired.
Yep.
Would be, who do they, after they've been here a while, who do they think the next priority ought to be?
Mhm.
I mean, is there a group that we should be going to town meeting to get them appointed as opposed to elected, or vice versa?
Mhm.
And take advantage of their experience in municipal government.
as a practical matter, too late to get this on the May 1 annual town meeting. By hopefully, the fall special town meeting is usually in September, October,
October.
early October. Sometimes it gets bumped. But it will probably have an appointed town administrator. I think Mike Mason said he was promised that he would go back to his day job by September.
Yeah.
that, even then, that's not enough time really.
No.
If we want to have something on the fall town meeting in October. That's something we have to be working on now, irregardless of who fills the job.
Right.
Or we could decide to wait, let that person get their feet wet. And then look at bringing something back to annual town meeting 27,
26.
26.
Again, the discussion with the select board.
Yeah.
Or it'd be ideal if the new town administrator had previous experience working in a town that had a charter like South Hadley.
Yeah.
But the odds of that are pretty remote.
Yeah.
Have we,
Well, I
do you
think
know if
that's-
we've gotten, candidates?
There
I-
are
I
candidates
agree.
and they're going to be
That should be one
interviewing
of
starting
the
next week.
selection criteria.
Hmm.
We're really, instead of,
I'm interested to see that. I
Oh,
mean, I
that's a
guess
tough
you're
one.
not gonna post their resume.
Well-
right? But just see their,
Not until the five,
experience.
just
level.
finalists,
Yeah.
which will be 2 to 4.
2 to 4
How
here.
many we got?
I think that they had 16.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. That's impressive. I'm surprised.
It seems like every time I read the Gazette, a town administrator is resigning or leaving or
Yeah.
a change.
Are they like, you know, professional sports coaches, we're gonna get someone that someone else fired and be like, yeah, you got
The
it.
school superintendents now. It's
Yeah, yeah.
So
that's
far,
true.
most of it, one town did interview someone who had been fired in another town. But most of them, I think there were 1 or 2 retirements,
Ah,
and that just opened the floodgates.
Yeah.
So then the Whately Town Administrator
everyone's
moved to
figured out,
Agawam,
Mhm.
and that left a
Mhm.
vacancy in Whately, which is filled by someone from,
West Hampton.
no, I think it was Shewsbury. Uh,
No, Shutesbury went to.
So is everybody just started climbing up to the bigger towns?
yeah, Shewsbury went to Sunderland, that's right. So now
That is a
Shewsbury,
step up.
Shewsbury is looking for someone. So, yeah, that was the thing, that it wasn't,
Council on Aging Director in Amherst went to Shutesbury.
Yes.
From Amherst to Shrewsbury, that's an
That's a
unusual
change.
change.
well, Council on Aging, that was the same thing that Carolyn did. She
Right.
was the Council on Aging, she moved up to Town Administrator.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing, the Amherst Council on Aging is now Town Administrator in
Shutesbury.
Shewsbury.
Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, it's all like a halfway, game of checkers, so.
Yeah. Fascinating.
So to your point, John, I don't think we have reached the point where we're getting people who were fired from other towns,
Yeah.
although
Mhm.
there are a few out there who had issues and may well,
Everyone knows, I guess, because it'd be in the papers, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, this one Google's not your friend.
Yeah. They used to tell us we shouldn't be Googling our candidates, because you know, that shouldn't be like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, you wanna, you know, hire someone who then the outside world tells the government just hired
Mhm.
this person who's, you know,
Yeah,
look at their
Mhm.
social media.
Yeah.
Like, is this him in a clan outfit? You know, like,
Mhm.
I'd like to know that before I hire, but
Yeah.
that's just me.
Mhm.
It's not a good look.
So
So
do we have,
I
next
feel like
meeting,
we have a path forward. We need a schedule.
Mhm.
We'll meet
So the select board meeting
select board
is
the
16.
16th.
16th,
16th, yeah.
You,
at what time?
we think we can
6
get on
o'clock.
that schedule?
Well, we're bumping up on town meeting,
Mhm.
right?
So
So,
they'll be
but I
busy.
mean, I'll talk to Jennifer, and Mike
Yeah.
and see what the schedule looks like. But yeah, we'll try to make it an appointment if we can, so
Okay.
that it's a specific time.
Yeah, and everyone try to attend if you can. Show of force, that'd be great.
Yep, and it's hybrid, so.
Oh, yeah, so you just need to like open your laptop, right?
Where do they meet these days?
We meet over here in the senior center, right here.
so, for our next meeting, if we stay with the first, we can't do the first Thursday of May, because that's town meeting.
Oh, yeah.
May
That's
1,
out.
so,
Mhm.
I thought we had
We have
talked,
been second.
we had been talking about second, and then for some reason this was bumped to first, and I don't remember
I
exactly
don't remember
why.
why.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, but the eighth,
Then we-
eighth,
May 8th.
And I'm gonna be on vacation that week. I'm
There's a
gonna be out
spring
of the country.
sap bucket planter.
Oh, the sugar shack. right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw
I
that.
wanted to do
That looks fun.
It's fine. we don't- No, it's very expensive. May 5 o'clock here. I am embarking on finding out all the logistical stuff that I need to, how to get into this building if there, it doesn't have to be a supper going on. Well, you guys are usually here
Yeah.
opening it,
Yeah,
right?
to say we'll be on the
Yeah.
media.
At the
yeah.
mirror, Alex.
You take care of that. And I keep missing, but I'm gonna start trying to meet with Jennifer about setting up web page and all that, but maybe by the 16th, we might not need all that, who knows? But it'll be good to know in case I get forced into the chair of some other committee.
So the emergency backup, I'm happy to have you use the town Google account. I maintain my own Google account. If you have, Jennifer cannot set up a meeting for you for some reason.
Google or Zoom.
I can, Zoom.
Oh, no, this was just for, Collins Center wanted us to have like a web page where people could read all of our stuff
Yeah.
and they could email us with their thoughts about town governance, because
Yeah.
everyone's sitting around thinking about it.
Yeah.
A lot of people using, governance structures, it's a popular topic.
Might be,
Yeah, you
might be
never
more
know.
interested in these
have no
days.
idea
You
what
never
I have
know.
a feeling I'll just have like a Gmail account full of spam and porn, but that's
It'll take a while.
the internet.
They won't find you initially.
It's true. So, but I will get that stuff done maybe tomorrow. It's been a challenge. One broken refrigerator in my house is just
Yeah.
thrown off a week or 2 weeks. God, it's been a nightmare, but it's over.
Motion to adjourn.
That's an excellent motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.